October 25th, 1415. Dawn has not yet broken. Near the village of Agincourt, northern France, rain hammers the earth like God himself is trying to drown the world. You are knee-deep in a freshly plowed field turned to glue. Each step rips your sabatons off your feet with a wet, sucking scream. The cold is inside your bones now. Your wool gambeson weighs more than plate armor. Ahead of you, barely visible through the downpour, 6,000 Englishmen are trying to form a line that looks more like a ragged scarecrow than an army. They are starving. They have marched 260 miles in 17 days on dysentery and despair. Half of them have left their sick comrades rotting in Harfleur's ditches. Their longbows are unstrung because wet yew warps and snaps. Their quivers are nearly empty, and they are laughing. Not the confident laugh of victors, the cracked, hollow laugh of men who have already died inside and are waiting for the world to notice. Behind a low ridge less than a mile away, the flower of French chivalry, perhaps 25,000 armored lords, knights banneret, ducal household men, are warming themselves by campfires, drinking hot wine, arguing over who will take King Henry V alive and how much ransom he is worth. Their heralds have already begun composing the victory songs. A young English archer named Thomas turns to the man beside him, teeth chattering so hard he can barely speak. "Reckon we'll see paradise today, Will?" Will spits blood-flecked phlegm into the mud. "Only if the French kill us quick." King Henry rides along the line on a small gray palfrey. No destrier left, all eaten weeks ago. His face is gaunt, eyes burning with fever, but his voice cuts through the storm like a bell. "Fellows, we happy few." He does not finish the sentence we all know now. In this moment, it is not poetry. It is desperation dressed as defiance. A horn sounds from the French lines, distant, mocking. The ground trembles. Thousands of plate-armored horsemen are mounting up. You can hear the creak of leather, the jingle of mail, the wet snort of war horses eager for the charge. The English have no cavalry left. No reserves. No retreat. Only a narrow strip of mud between two woods, a slight rise, and 6,000 men who have nothing left to lose. And then the rain stops. For one heartbeat, the world holds its breath. A single English longbowman raises his bow, strings it with shaking fingers, and knocks a goose-feathered arrow that glints like a needle of ice. The French vanguard begins to move. 7:12 a.m. The clouds hang so low they scrape the helmets of the French vanguard. No trumpets yet, no war cries, just the slow, deliberate clop of iron-shod hooves as the 1st Mounted Division, 800 heavy cavalry under Guillaume de Savoisset and Cligny de Brabant, forms into a glittering wedge. Their lances are lowered, pennons already soaked dark. They intend to ride the English archers from the flanks before the main battle even joins. Henry sees them coming. His voice is calm, almost conversational, as he turns to his brother Humphrey, Duke of Gloucester, beside him. They mean to ride us down like deer. Humphrey, pale from the flux, manages a grin. Let them try. The ground will do half our work. Because the ground is a traitor. Overnight, the newly plowed fields have drunk a month's rain. Beneath the surface crust lies a foot of liquid clay. The French knights do not see it. From their campfires, it looked flat, firm enough, perfect for a charge that will make legends.
An English captain named John Camoy spits into the mud and mutters, "Come on, you beautiful bastards, come ride your glory into hell." The French heralds blow the advance. 800 destres surge forward. The earth shakes. Lances drop as one. You can almost taste the arrogance in the air. Metallic, hot, certain. They cover 50 yards, 100. Their horses are at the canter now, manes whipping, plate barding flashing through the mist. Then the first horse hits the soft patch. Its forelegs disappear to the knees. Momentum pitches the rider over the pommel in a crash of steel. The horse behind cannot stop. It slams into the fallen beast, screams, rolls. Within seconds, the entire front rank is a tangle of thrashing horseflesh and shattered knights. The second wave piles into the wreck. You hear bones snap like green wood. And still the English have not loosed a single arrow. Henry raises his hand. Every longbowman, 4,000 of them, stands frozen, bows half drawn, watching the finest cavalry in Christendom destroy itself without a blow being struck. A French knight tries to rise. His greaves are full of mud. He looks like a statue being born from the earth. Another staggers upright, only to be crushed beneath a falling horse. The screams are terrible, men and animals welded together in agony. The charge is already dead. It just hasn't stopped moving yet. Henry lowers his hand. 4,000 yew-bows creak as one. A sound like a giant tearing linen fills the valley. The first volley rises black against the gray sky, hangs for an impossible heartbeat, and falls.
The arrows do not fall like rain. Rain is gentle. This is vengeance. They come down almost vertically, 6-inch steel bodkin points driven by 150 pounds of yew and hemp. Each arrow punches through visor slits, mail gussets, the thin plate over a horse's croup. You hear the impacts, 1,000 wet hammer blows, the clatter of steel on steel, the sudden animal shriek as a warhorse takes a yard of ash through the chest. The French front line simply disappears. Men who were laughing moments ago are now pinned to the mud by arrows through the throat. A horse rears, arrow shafts jutting from its neck like porcupine quills, and crashes backward onto its rider. The second volley is already in the air before the first has finished killing. "Loose at will," Henry roars, voice cracking with something that might be joy. The longbowmen no longer need orders. They have become a single breathing machine. Draw, knock, loose. 12 arrows a minute, every minute, until the strings shred their fingers raw. The air fills with the demonic hum of bow staves and the whistle of goose feathers. From the French side, it looks like the end of the world. The sky has gone dark with shafts. One knight, Ferry de Lorraine, takes an arrow straight through the open visor. It lifts him clean out of the saddle and drops him 10 feet behind his horse, dead before he lands. The surviving cavalry try to wheel, but there is nowhere to go. Behind them, the 2nd Mounted Division is already committed, thundering into the carnage. The archers simply shift aim. More arrows, more horses screaming, more bright lords turned to rag dolls in gilded armor. In less than 4 minutes, the pride of French chivalry lies broken in the mud. Fewer than 100 riders limp back to their lines. The rest, 700 knights and esquires, are dead or dying beneath the trampled banners of Bourbon, Alençon, and Vendôme. A hush falls. Even the English bowmen pause, chests heaving, staring at what they have done. Then a single voice rises from the archers' ranks, some Welshman no one will ever name. He starts to sing, low at first, then stronger. Others join him. It is not a hymn, it is the old marching song of Crécy. Our bows are bent and our strings are tight. St. George for England and God for the right. Across the field, the French commanders watch in stunned silence. The Constable of France, Charles d'Albret, turns to the Duke of Orleans and says one sentence
that will haunt him forever. They have more arrows than we have men. Behind them, the main French battle, 15,000 men-at-arms on foot, begins to move forward, slowly, reluctantly. Because now they understand, to reach the English, they must walk across a half-mile killing field already littered with their own dead. The archers reach for fresh sheaves. The French lower their visors and start to march.
The French men-at-arms advance in silence. No drums, no trumpets, just the relentless clank of 30,000 sabatons churning the field into a bloody paste. They come in two massive divisions, one behind the other, each 8 to 10 ranks deep. Plate armor from Milanese forges glints dully under the low sky. Every man is a walking fortress, full harness, poleaxes, shortened lances. They are so tightly packed that when one falls, the men behind cannot step aside. They simply trample him deeper into the mire. The ground narrows here between the woods of Agincourt and Tramcourt. What looked like open meadow from the French camp is now a funnel barely 300 yards wide. The English line is only 4 men deep. It should shatter on contact. It does not. The first French rank hits the English center like a steel tsunami. You feel it before you hear it, a concussion in the chest, the way thunder arrives before sound. Hundreds of tons of armored men slam into a thin crust of English knights and men-at-arms. For one terrifying heartbeat, the English line bows backward, almost breaks. Then the stakes hold. Every English archer drove a 6-foot sharpened stake into the mud at 45 degrees before the battle. The French front rank impales itself on them. Men scream as oak splinters punch through gorgets and breastplates. The second rank collides with the first and cannot stop. They push the dying forward onto the stakes, crushing their own vanguard alive. Now the killing becomes intimate. Poleaxe meets pole hammer. Two-handed swords rise and fall in crimson arcs. A French knight, Jean de Craon, swings his mace so hard it caves in an English helmet. The dented steel folds around the dying man's skull like tin. Beside him, Sir John Cornwall drives his poleaxe through a visor slit and out the back of a Burgundian's neck in a fountain of bright arterial blood. The English archers are in the fight now too. They have dropped their bows. They fight with mallets, shortened swords, daggers, anything that can punch through mail or find a gap in plate. One archer leaps onto a French knight's back, wraps his legs around the breastplate, and hammers a narrow bodkin dagger again and again into the eye slot until the giant topples like a felled oak. Bodies stack so fast, the second French division literally climbs over their own dead to reach the enemy. Men suffocate standing up, pressed by the weight behind them. Some tear off their helmets just to breathe and are brained instantly. Others drown face down in 6 inches of bloody water, too heavy to rise. King Henry is in the thick of it too. His crown circlet has been beaten into his helm by a French mace. Blood streams down his cheek from a split above the eye, but he fights like a man possessed. When the royal standard-bearer, Sir Walter Hungerford, falls, Henry plants the banner in the mud with his own hands and stands over it, sword in one fist, poleaxe in the other. A gigantic French knight, later identified as the Lord of Gisteles, charges straight at the king. Henry meets him head-on. The impact rings like church bells. The Frenchman's sword skitters off Henry's breastplate. Henry's poleaxe bites deep into the man's thigh,
severing the artery behind the cuisse. The giant collapses, pumping his life into the French colors. 15 minutes after the first clash, the impossible has happened. The French 1st Division is no longer advancing. It is a writhing, screaming carpet of steel and meat, piled 4 and 5 bodies high in places. The English line has not moved backward a single yard, and the 2nd French Division is still coming.
The 2nd French Division reaches the carnage and stops. Not from courage, from physics. They literally cannot move forward. The ground ahead has risen 6 feet in places, a grotesque rampart built entirely of their own dead and dying. Plate-clad bodies are fused into a single mass, armor locked together by broken weapons, limbs twisted at impossible angles. Blood runs in rivulets down the slope like rain on a roof. Men at the front try to climb it. Their sabatons find no purchase on polished breastplates slicked with gore. They slip, fall, are trampled by the ranks behind. Some knights simply stand there, visors up, staring in horror at what France has become. A voice from the English side, hoarse, incredulous, almost laughing, shouts across the charnel ground, "Is this all of you? Send more! We have room!" The French nobles in the rear still believe numbers will tell. They scream at their men to press on. The Duke of Brabant arrives late, half-armored, wearing a shortened trumpet banner as a surcoat because his own heraldic gear was lost on the march. He tries to rally the rearmost division, waving his sword like a prophet. It is already too late. Behind the English lines, something shifts. The baggage train. The servants, the priests, the wounded who could still stand, even the boys who carried arrows. They see the French 3rd Division hesitating. They see the mountain of corpses, and they begin to move forward. Not in formation, not with discipline, but with the raw, feral energy of men who realize the impossible is happening. King Henry sees it too. His face, beneath the blood and the battered crown, breaks into something terrible and beautiful. He lifts his broken sword and points it not at the enemy, but at the French baggage camp half a mile away. "Take their wagons! Take their gold! Take their lives if they lift a hand!" It is the signal. Thousands of English, archers out of arrows, men-at-arms with splintered shields, limping clerics swinging maces, pour around both flanks like floodwater. They are not an army now. They are wolves. The French rear sees them coming and does the one thing no one expected from the proudest chivalry in Europe. They run. Not a disciplined withdrawal, a panic. Plate armor is abandoned in heaps as men tear at buckles and straps, desperate to move faster. Great lords who rode to battle beneath silk standards now sprint barefoot through the mud, sobbing. The Duke of Orléans is captured, hiding beneath a pile of corpses. The Duke of Bourbon is dragged out of a ditch by 2 English cooks who cannot believe their luck. In the center, the trapped 2nd Division realizes it is surrounded. Some fight to the last. Most throw down weapons and scream for mercy in frantic French. Henry, standing atop the corpse mountain, watches the rout begin. Then a horn sounds, not English, French, from the rear. A fresh body of cavalry, 800 men who never joined the first charge, comes thundering along the Tramecourt road, lances leveled, aiming straight for the king's banner on the highest point of the slaughter field. Henry turns, blood dripping from his sword, and smiles like a man who has been waiting for this moment all his life.
The French countercharge comes from nowhere. 800 fresh lances, led by the lords of Fauquemberg and Rieux, who spent the morning arguing over precedence instead of fighting. Now they see the King of England standing alone on a hill of French dead, crown battered into his bassinet, and they smell salvation. They hit the English left flank like a battering ram. For the first time all day, the English line buckles. Men who were cheering moments ago are suddenly fighting for their lives again. The French knights carve a red path straight toward Henry. One of them, Outnumbered d'Agincourt, a local lord desperate to wipe out the shame on his own land, drives his lance clean through the royal standard-bearer and keeps riding, horse leaping the corpses, aiming for the king himself. Henry meets him on foot. The lance shatters against the king's breastplate. Henry staggers but does not fall. Outnumbered draws his sword and swings downward with both hands. Henry parries with what is left of his own blade, then lunges inside the guard and rams the broken shard up under the Frenchman's visor. The man topples backward, dead before his spurs touch the ground. 18 French knights reach the crest. 18. Henry fights in the middle of them like something out of the old chanson the French themselves used to sing, a blood-soaked devil in dented armor. His household knights, Gloucester, York, Sir John Holland, form a tiny ring around him, but it is Henry who does most of the killing. One knight swings a mace that dents the royal helm so deeply it half blinds the king. Henry answers by hooking the man's leg with his poleaxe and hacking his throat open as he falls. Then the ring breaks. The Duke of Alençon, second in command of the entire French army, has fought his way through the press, poleaxe in both hands. He smashes 2 English knights aside and comes face to face with Henry. History will argue forever about what he shouted, but every eyewitness agrees on the gesture. Alençon raises his weapon in both hands and brings it down in a killing arc aimed at the crowned helmet. Henry catches the blow on his vambrace. The steel holds, but the bone beneath does not. His left arm goes numb. Alençon wrenches the poleaxe free for a second stroke. He never lands it. An English man-at-arms named Henry Beaufort, no relation to the royal house, just a yeoman with a dagger, slips under the guard of the Duke and drives a narrow blade up beneath his skirt of his fald, once, twice, 3 times. The Duke staggers, blood pouring down his legs. He drops the poleaxe, sinks to his knees, and with his last strength tears off his gauntlet and raises his bare hand toward the king. The ancient signal, I yield, ransom me. Henry looks down at him for 1 heartbeat, then brings the poleaxe down with his one good arm and ends the Duke of Alençon's life in a spray of steel and bone. The last French countercharge dissolves. The riders who still have horses flee, the rest die where they stand. Silence falls across the field. Not peace, just exhaustion. Henry sinks to one knee atop the corpse mountain. Blood drips from his ruined arm. His breath comes in ragged gasps. Around him, the English begin to realize they are still alive. A single voice starts cheering, then another. Within seconds, the valley echoes with a sound the French will never forget. 6,000 starving, diseased, half-naked Englishmen roaring themselves hoarse in victory. Henry lifts his head. Through the slit in his broken helm, he sees the French 3rd Division, still thousands strong, standing motionless at the edge of the field. He rises. He raises the broken sword that killed a duke, and he gives them one last look that says, "Come and finish it if you dare." They do not dare.
The cheering stops as suddenly as it began. Henry lowers the broken sword. His voice, when it comes, is quiet, almost conversational, yet every man within 50 yards hears it clear as a bell.
Kill the prisoners. For one impossible second, no one moves. The English have taken hundreds of high-ranking French captives, dukes, counts, bannerets worth small fortunes in ransom. They are already roped together in the rear, helmets off, some still joking with their captors about the wine they will share once the heralds settle the terms. Now the king has just condemned them all. Sir Gilbert Umfraville, Earl of Kyme, is the first to understand. He sees what Henry sees. The French 3rd Division, still 8,000 men, has not fled. They are forming up again on the far side of the field. Their banners are advancing, slowly, deliberately. They have realized the English are spent, out of arrows, surrounded by hostages who slow them down more than any shield wall. If those French come on now, the battle turns again. One fresh push, and Henry dies here, crown and all. There is only one way to free 6,000 exhausted Englishmen to fight or march. Henry repeats it, louder this time, and the words carry a chill worse than the October rain. Kill them, every one. Swords come out of scabbards with a sound like a single drawn breath. What follows is not battle, it is butchery. French nobles who moments ago were dictating ransom terms are dragged to their knees. Some beg, some curse, some simply stare in disbelief as English archers, men they considered peasants an hour ago, drive daggers into throats, eyes, armpits. The Duke of Brabant, half-armored and barefoot, is hacked down by 3 men at once. His body is trampled into the mud before anyone realizes who he was. A 15-year-old page tries to shield his master, Charles of Artois, and dies with him. One French knight, Sir Jean de Croix, manages to grab a sword from a dead Englishman. He kills 2 archers before he is swarmed, and literally pulled apart. The screams rise higher than any during the battle itself. Some English refuse. A handful of knights stand over their personal prisoners, weapons drawn, daring their own comrades to touch them. It nearly comes to blows. Henry watches it all from the crest, face unreadable beneath the blood. His left arm hangs useless, yet he never flinches. Then a miracle, or a curse, happens. The French 3rd Division sees the slaughter begin. They see the prisoners dying, and something breaks in them that cannot be mended. They turn. Not in order, not with trumpets. They simply turn and walk away. Then jog, then run. 8,000 men who could still have won the day scatter across the fields of Picardy like leaves before a winter gale. The killing stops as suddenly as it began. The English stand among the bodies of men they had begun to call "my lord of this" and "my lord of that," staring at hands that will never be clean again. Henry sinks to his knees a second time, this time, not from exhaustion. He is weeping. Not for the dead French, not even for the dead English, for what he has just made his army become. A priest, Father Nicholas Clint, kneels beside him and tries to offer comfort. Henry pushes him away, voice raw. "I have damned us all this day." Behind him, The battlefield of Agincourt is silent, except for the low moaning of the wounded and the soft, relentless patter of returning rain.
Late afternoon, October 25, 1415. The rain has come back, harder now, as if heaven itself wants to wash the field clean and knows it never will. King Henry stands alone on the little rise where his banner still flies, ragged and blood-soaked. The crown circlet has been beaten so deeply into his bassinet that the surgeons will have to cut it free later. He does not seem to notice. He is staring across the valley at what he has wrought. 5,000 French lords and knights lie dead in a space no larger than a few city blocks. Another 2,000, wounded, unhorsed, broken, are being rounded up a second time because the English no longer trust the word ransom. The flower of French chivalry, Bourbon, Alençon, Bar, Brabant, half of the royal blood of Europe, is now fertilizer for Picard wheat. English losses? Fewer than 400. Some chroniclers will swear it was only 112. Men will argue about the numbers for 600 years, but every man who was there knows the truth feels obscene. A young esquire named Davy Gam, Welsh, half-mad, loyal unto death, staggers up the slope carrying 3 captured standards. He tries to lay them at Henry's feet the way the romances say you're supposed to. His legs give out halfway. He dies smiling, the banners clutched to his chest like blankets. Henry does not see him fall. He is watching the French heralds ride forward under a white banner of parley. They come slowly, picking their way through the carnage, faces the color of parchment. When they reach the English line, they dismount and kneel, not to Henry, but to the dead. One of them, the herald of the Duke of Berry, looks up with eyes that have seen the end of the world. "Sire," he says, in French so perfect it sounds like mourning, "we yield the day. The battle is yours. Name it." Henry's voice is a croak. "Call it Agincourt." The herald bows so low his forehead touches the mud. Then Henry asks the question no victor has ever asked before. "How many of your princes are dead?" The herald begins to list them. Each name lands like a hammer blow. When he reaches Charles, Duke of Orléans, alive but captive, Arthur de Richemont, alive, Jean, Duke of Bourbon, alive, Henry suddenly raises his good hand to stop the roll of the dead. He turns away, toward the English lines where his men are beginning the grim work of stripping corpses for anything dry, anything edible, anything worth carrying home. Night is coming. There will be no pursuit. The English are too exhausted, too stunned to chase shadows. Fires are lit, small ones, because there is almost no wood that isn't soaked in blood. Men sit in silence around them. No songs tonight, no boasting, just the low murmur of prayers in 3 languages and the occasional broken laugh that turns into sobbing. Henry walks among them like a ghost. He stops beside a fire where a dozen archers share a single loaf of moldy bread. One of them, the same Thomas from dawn, looks up, eyes red. "Did we win, sire?" Henry stares into the flames for a long time. "We survived," he says at last. God alone knows what we have become. Farther off, French prisoners, those rich enough to be spared the second time, sit huddled under guard. One of them, a boy of 17 who will one day be famous as Jean de Dunois, watches the English king pass and whispers to no one in particular, "He is either the greatest captain alive or the most accursed." The rain keeps falling. The fires hiss and spit. And somewhere in the dark, a single longbowman begins to weep. Not for the French, not for England, but because he realizes he will never again be the man who woke up that morning. Tomorrow they will march south. Tomorrow Henry will put the crown back on and speak of God's judgment and English glory. Tonight there is only mud and blood and the terrible silence that comes after miracles.
November 14th, 1415. Calais. The gates swing open at dawn. The army that rides through is not the same one that left Harfleur 2 months ago. They come in silence. 6,000 scarecrows in patched armor, faces hollowed by hunger and something worse. Their banners are torn, soaked crimson and brown. Behind them, lashed across captured horses, ride the coffins of the high-born dead. York, Suffolk, Davy Gam, wrapped in whatever cloth could be spared. At the head rides Henry. His left arm is splinted and slung beneath a cloak of plain wool, no royal surcoat left. The surgeons pried the battered crown's circuit from his helm the night after the battle. The scars on his forehead will never fade. He does not wear the crown now. He carries it in a leather bag like contraband. The people of Calais line the walls. At first they cheer. Word reached them weeks ago. Miracle, victory, God's own judgment. But when they see the state of the men, the cheers die in their throats. Mothers cover children's eyes. A priest begins reciting the De Profundis without being asked. Henry dismounts in the market square and kneels on the wet cobbles. He stays there so long the garrison thinks he is praying. He is not. He is listening to the sound the battle still makes inside his skull. Steel on steel. Horses screaming. The wet pop of daggers finding visors. Alençon's last breath rattling through a broken throat. When he finally rises, he gives one order only. No victory parades. No Te Deum in the square. We sail for England as soon as the wind allows. The wind allows on November 16th. They cross in a fleet of leaky cogs, packed so tight the horses have to be slung in slings like pargo. Men puke the whole way, not from seasickness, but from the smell of their own bandages and the memory that will not wash off. November 23rd, 1415. Dover. The cliffs are white. Thousands are waiting. Londoners, countrymen, women who have not seen their sons since midsummer. When the first ship touches shore, the crowd surges forward with flowers, wine, cries of "Harry of Agincourt." Henry steps onto English soil, and the roar hits him like a second French charge. He does not smile. He walks through them as if they are ghosts, eyes fixed on nothing. A little girl tries to hand him a posy of late roses. He takes it with his good hand, stares at the petals for a long moment, then tucks them inside his doublet directly over his heart. London receives him on a cold, bright day in December. The city has spent a fortune. Streets graveled fresh, tapestries hung, conduits running with free wine. Conduits that will be painted gold for the king who beat the French with a starving army. Henry rides beneath triumphal arches while choirs sing Non Nobis and Te Deum. Captured banners, Orléans, Bourbon, Alençon, Boucicaut, are dragged in the mud behind his horse so the crowd can cheer their humiliation. At every bridge, at every cross, actors dressed as prophets and angels praise God's deliverance. Henry
never once lifts his eyes to look at them. That night in Westminster, after the feasting he does not touch, he walks alone to the chapel of St. Edward. The guards know better than to follow. He kneels before the confessor's shrine until dawn, fully armed, the dented crown finally back on his head, because the archbishop insisted. No one hears what he says. Some swear he said nothing at all. Years later, when the French wars grind on and Henry lies dying at 35 in the Bois de Vincennes, he will give his last confession to a priest who dares to ask the question men have whispered ever since. Was Agincourt worth the price, my son? Henry's answer will be one sentence, barely audible. I have been trying to pay it ever since. Outside the chapel windows that night in 1422, the Seine runs black under a French moon. Somewhere far away, in a quiet English churchyard, a weathered stone bears a simple carving. A long bow, a crown, and the date, 1415.